right, good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the July 29th meeting of the Utilities Service Board to order. As a reminder, our City of Bloomington Utilities mission is to enhance the quality of life in our community by providing safe, sustainable, and high-quality drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater services in a cost-effective manner, promoting public health, economic vitality, and environmental stewardship. And as a reminder, if any board member has any personal or financial conflict with any issues or individuals on the agenda, then please be sure to recuse yourself during those portions of the meeting. Our first item on the agenda is petitions and communications. Do we have any public comments today? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Next item is the appeal of a customer's utility bill, the water and wastewater charges. I believe this utility customer is joining us via Zoom. Hi, Lily. My name is Meg. You can hear us okay? Thank you. My name is Megan Parmenter. I'm the Utility Service Board President. Thank you for joining us tonight and again coming back after our technical difficulties 2 weeks ago. You're presenting to our board, and we've got some staff and public members in the crowd. And if you would please state your name and then go ahead and tell us about your case.
Hi, I'm Lily Franklin. Basically, I moved out the 11th of June. May, sorry. I moved out the 11th of May out of 420 North Fess, that apartment we're leasing through Elkins. And I left at about noon. And then from that day until Memorial Day, water was gushing out of somewhere. There was Elkins people in the apartment that were fixing other things. They changed the toilet seat, but they didn't hear any water running or anything or say anything to us. And so we don't know where the water went. We don't really know that it's fair that Elkins was in there and they didn't notice either, but we're being blamed despite not being there. And since then, we've had, just last week, there was a day that water was running in 10 gallons every other hour, and we have no explanation for it. None of my roommates are living there. Elkins says that they don't know anything, so we don't really know what we're supposed to do and how it's fair that we're paying a water bill that we have really no control over at this point.
And also we filed, I'm her mother. We filed, this petition now, and we understand that supposedly the water went somewhere. There's no explanation as to where it went or how it went. But Elkins did say they changed a valve on a toilet. Everybody seems to think it was a toilet, although there was none running when Lily left, and it seems odd that it would just start, but I don't know. So we did show where something was fixed within the apartment and had been told that if you could show that something was fixed, you could at least get a break on the bill. I guess that's what we know and we're hoping for, just some leniency at least.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say at this time?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. So we've got Mr. Chris Wheeler here from our City of Bloomington Utilities, and Mr. Wheeler.
Hi, Chris Wheeler with City Legal.
I'm sorry, are you able to see Mr. Wheeler? Okay.
Excellent. Hi, and can hear me, correct? Awesome. Okay, so just addressing how the Utilities Department adjusts water bills when there is a question about a water bill. We follow the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission and its regulations for how water bills are adjusted. Our own rules and regulations read very similar to how the IURC has its rules and regulations set forth in the administrative code. And the way that we are allowed to review and adjust water bills is to determine whether there is a meter error. And we did that. We had Mr. Johnson review and inspect the meter in question to determine whether it was functioning properly. And Mr. Johnson, if you would come up, please, I would like for you to explain to the board what you did. Announce your name and let the board know.
Kenny Johnson, Assistant Superintendent at Meter Services. What we do in this case is basically they're saying the meter ran without water going through it. We pull the meter, I bring it into the shop, I air gap 100 gallon through it, I let it sit. I start it, I stop it, I start it, I stop it, let it sit for 2 or 3 hours, and then we run the AWB test on it. I could not get it to duplicate the problem that they're saying it had. The accuracy is in your guys' packet of what the meter says the accuracy is of the water going through it. So,
Thank you.
Any questions?
you have any questions for me? No.
So, when you look at our rules, in Section 6, Adjustment of Bills, we are allowed to make adjustments when there is a meter error. And when under 6.2.1 of our rules and regulations, if the meter error is such that the customer is overcharged, showing because the meter is running incorrectly, calculating incorrectly, then we can compensate them for that overcharge. And if for some reason the meter is running too slow and undercharging, we would have the opportunity then to ask the customer to correct by paying more to the utility so that we could show the calculation of how much water the meter was undercharging. But it's only in those instances where we have a meter error that we are allowed to actually make that adjustment. If we had like a billing error, where there was some kind of a billing error where we simply made a calculation, an accounting error, we could adjust that as well. But there's no indication that there was an accounting error or some other type of billing error, and the meter is operating correctly. So from the water perspective, we don't have any opportunity to provide any relief to the customer as requested. The customer then also has referenced that if you can show that there was a problem and the problem was fixed, then you might be able to get some relief. But what she's referring to there actually is on the wastewater side. So if we can show that somehow the meter had run and captured the water that goes through so that we know how much water came through, but before it reached the house, before it was used in the system and then went down the sewer, if there was a leak somewhere before it went down into the sewer, and you could show that and that it was corrected and the date of correction and the cost of all of the fixing, we could then do an adjustment on the wastewater side. But I don't believe that that's happened here either. So unfortunately, from a legal perspective and what the IURC expects of us as a municipal utility is that we simply don't have any mechanism for providing relief in this case. Now, there may have been a toilet that was running. It may have been fixed. There's some information that was shared that indicates that a valve was replaced on a toilet. And so it's possible that there was a problem. If the tenant and the landlord are having a dispute, it's between them, and this utility really can't get involved. So my recommendation legally to this board is that the request for the adjustment be denied. As unfortunate as that answer would be, or as much as you wouldn't like to hear that answer, that legally is what we are charged with doing. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Yes,
Yes.
Jim.
And you're also saying that staff has gone through and verified anything that we could have done on our end. You feel that we've looked at all options in terms of from CBU's standpoint.
Yeah, from an accounting standpoint, the billing was calculated correctly. From a meter standpoint, the meter appears to be running and metering correctly. So
Okay.
the utility did not do anything wrong. The water went through the meter and it was calculated correctly, and that is what's owed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim.
I have a few questions. So could you remind me again, when did you move out?
May 11th at about 12 p.m.
And could you say when did this big increase in water usage begin?
Later that day.
So it began after you moved out.
Yes, sir. And it went until 5 a.m. on Memorial Day, and then it stopped.
Okay, so
Completely.
when did you find out about the water usage?
When we got the bill.
Which was when?
That would have been the first part of June.
Okay, so you didn't know until June that there was
Right.
water. Okay. In terms of notification, I know we get notification when there's excess usage of water, like we're watering the lawn or something. Was such a notification sent out to either Elkins or to the renters?
It was not.
Would Elkins have gotten a notification?
They did not. I talked to the water company and they said they didn't send out any notifications. Implied they didn't get any notifications, even though it was running at 260 gallons an hour for 2 weeks, 16 days.
So is that unusual not to give notification? I thought that was one of the big benefits of the,
I don't have any personal knowledge that I would be allowed or able to answer that question. It would have to be
well,
somebody from staff
do,
that could
do
do
we
that.
typically send out notifications?
The check for leak program's it's a courtesy that, sorry. The check for leak program's just a courtesy that we do when we have the staff to do it, the manpower to do it, if we're not doing delinquents. It's all based on if we have the manpower, to get that done, vacations. They have the access to the portal. They can sign up for the customer portal to see their own usage where I don't monitor everybody's
Sure.
plumbing.
But I get notifications without asking for them.
Yeah, you don't have to ask for them. It's just if we're available to do them at that time.
But I get
We'll
them
go
all
out.
the time.
But I
In
think
the
you've
summer.
signed up for your,
So-
for the portal.
Yeah, so I signed up.
Yeah, if you signed up for them,
So
you
I'd be
get them.
shocked that Elkins, who rents a lot of properties, wouldn't sign up for a notification.
That'd be.
I mean, that's,
Mhm.
what?
Yeah.
No, I understand, but I'm just surprised your renter would.
We're signed up for all of our rental properties.
Yeah, so, I mean, that could have solved the problem pretty easily.
What he's explaining is that we, as property owners, what we can do is, and as anyone that is a customer of CBU can go online to their portal to be notified if there is a high water usage. And so, as a tenant and as a ratepayer for that location that you lived at, you could have signed up for notification to let you know if there was an excessive use of water. But at the same time, the landlord can also do that too. So I'm not really quite sure if that gives you any, assistance with perhaps talking with Elkins.
Okay, we do know that now because we've been watching it since then, and there has been weird, arbitrary water usage. I think we saw where when they pulled the meter, maybe it used 450 gallons in a short period of time.
That was us testing it.
So we have set that up. That we did not know that beforehand, and there was college students living there that obviously did not know that. So I do have a second question
Please go
when we
ahead.
get done with this.
Question, Kurt?
Did you say that there's been usage since you've moved out and since you've been monitoring, there's still usage going on?
Yes, sir.
Well, there's something wrong there, isn't there? There's water coming through that meter if nobody's using it. Nobody's there. How much
Right.
you're using a day with nobody being there?
It's very sporadic. There was one period that 450 gallons were used, but I think my husband talked to the water company and they said they pulled the meter that day. So I'm
Oh.
assuming that's why.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right.
that day.
That's from us testing it.
That's from our test, yeah.
Are there
Okay.
additional
But-
days that you've had a significant amount of water running through?
Not overly significant, not more than 40 gallons Usually it's 10 gallons here and 10 gallons there.
And
But it's
nobody's,
still bizarre because no one is there. Elkins is not notifying us. We could see, like, sometimes if they're like a worker is stopping by to fix this, it's like, okay, maybe they use the bathroom. But they've only been maybe a few times, and it's like a weekly thing. Like, what's
Yeah.
the water doing this week? And no one is there.
Yeah. So there's a problem somewhere. We can't figure out where it is and feel very caught in the middle with the brunt of it obviously coming to us.
But they've had a plumber in checking all of the,
Yeah.
I
My
know,
understanding is yes. We have asked them to do that. They have told us they did.
yeah, I know we once had a problem where there was a lot of use, then there wasn't, and there was a lot of use, and it turned out that the chain connecting the plunger to the thing was too long and it was getting wrapped around, and so water was flowing, but if you hit the handle, then it would stop until someone did it again. So there are ways in which lots of water can be used sometimes, but not other times. So,
Right, but somebody has to be there to at least trip it, right? To use it once for it to start.
I assume so.
Yeah. My other question is, so we filed the, I forget what it's called, what petition that just, you know, to try to figure out what this problem is without, paying the whole bill. It said you could file your petition and pay your average monthly bill for the past year, until it gets settled. And we did that, but we're still incurring, penalties. And our understanding was if we went through the process on your website, we didn't think we would still be incurring penalties. So far, it's $100 penalty or a little more than that. And I would request that we not have to pay that, as we've been very diligently trying to figure out what the problem is and what to do, and we feel like we we followed the right procedure.
Mr., did you have something to say?
No,
Mr.
I
Okay.
don't.
All right.
Well, I mean, with regards to a penalty that would be charged on a disputed bill, I think that that could be waived.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because the reason it didn't get paid is because it got disputed. As
Right.
far as paying an average over time of like the next month or so, that's going to, if they want to to schedule a payment plan, they can do that as well to get that higher amount paid over time. But as far as a delinquency for not paying the amount that they disputed, we shouldn't charge that.
Yes.
Thank you.
How can we get that resolved? Okay, so that was Matt Havey, and he said they'll get an adjustment on the bill for those delinquent charges while this is at least getting taken care of.
Yeah, question?
No, I was just going to suggest is, since you're not there a good bit of some times, is there a water shut-off that you could do when you leave the apartment?
Well, as of today was the last day of the lease, so we're off the hook as of today. But we
Okay.
did at one point ask Elkins to turn the water off.
Yeah.
But it was well past when all the water had run. There's not one that we could do. It's very
Okay.
old and decrepit, and we didn't feel comfortable touching it. We turned off some of the toilets.
Okay, thanks.
So, Chris, do we need a motion to make a decision one way or the other? Thank you.
Yes. In this instance, you would need to make a motion either to approve the petition for adjustment or to deny the petition for adjustment. I would include in your motion that the late fee that was assessed should be waived.
Yes, okay, thank you. And thank you both for coming and sharing with us today. I'm sorry that you've been put in this situation. So do we have a motion to either approve or deny the request? The petition.
Unfortunately, because of what staff has done and what the guidelines that we do follow by the state, I do make a motion that we deny the request. However, we do make accommodations to have any delinquent charges removed from the customer's bill.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. So your petition will be denied today, but we will definitely remove any delinquent fees, and we will be happy to have our staff work with you to work out a payment plan to get that taken care of. We encourage you to go back to your landlord. This seems like an issue that is on their end. And so I'm sorry that we're not able to help you today, but I hope that you can get that resolved with the landlord. And best wishes to you moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is the appeal of a denial of the sewer extension. And I believe we've got Mr. Carmen here today.
And Mr. Patel should be on Zoom.
Okay, and Mr. Patel on the Zoom? Yes, okay, thank you.
Yes.
And just as a reminder, the microphone is just for cats, but if you'll please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Michael Carmen, attorney with Harry Inc., which would be the petitioner, and Rajesh Patel, representative Harry Inc.
Okay, thank you. And if you would go ahead and tell us your case, either you or Mr. Patel.
I'm going to start, and depending on what question may have, may need to certainly defer to Mr. Patel. Mr. Patel has the property at essentially the corner or the intersection of Airport Road and West 45, and acquired it from Don Funkhauser, who'd owned it for many years. You may recognize the property. There's a row of storage barns he'd had for sale there by an independent contractor for many years. Mr. Patel's in the process of having the property, which is under split zoning in the county right now, rezoned to a consistent single zone on there. The county's comprehensive land use plan calls for essentially a commercial node type zoning there, general business. Part of it's general business, part of it's limited business now, and try to get it rezoned consistently to the general business. He has his development plan for that property would be a convenience store, fueling station. There are a couple existing buildings, a stone house and a white frame house that he intends to reuse, but as commercial uses, not as residential. And so the petition for the sewer was in accordance with your policies, and we understand that the denial, and we're appealing that under the circumstances, the intended use, consistency with the comprehensive land use plan, calling for commercial type uses there, would ask that the reconsideration and that the sewer extension be approved. It's, I estimate, my understanding from the engineer is about 2,000 feet to get to the sewer line and bring it to the property.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Patel, do you have anything to add?
No. Thanks for in advance for encouraging the commercial project business and also those avenue from annexation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any board members that have questions for Mr. Carmen or Mr. Patel at this time? Oh, Jim, yes, please.
Mike, on what grounds are you appealing?
The property, Jim, I assume you're not inviting me to debate the policy because that's not going to get me any place. I understand that,
Right.
but we could talk a whole long time about that problem.
Question.
So we have a property that's going to get developed one way or another. It is. It can be done on septic. It's a much different process to do it on septic as opposed to sewer, but it's going to get developed anyway, one way or the other. The county supports the rezoning, so that's going to happen. The uses are all going to get permitted. So if he's forced to do it on septic, then it never is going to go on sewer, and it ought to be on sewer. I mean, long-range, reasonable, responsible development would put it on sewer. And honestly, I cannot not say at least one word about the policy. This is the situation that the current policy has put not only this property, but some others in, that what do? We ignore, we don't do sewer, we develop on a septic. Someday, sewer is going to be brought to this property, whether it's next year or or by this petitioner, or 10 years down the road, it's going to happen, and it's not going to be sewered as long as there's an operating septic there. And so it creates that. And everything considered, it ought to be done on sewer now, not later. That's amazing.
So you're arguing on the basis of rationality.
Well,
In a
if,
sense.
honestly, Jim, if we view sewer versus septic as a public health issue,
Right.
I find it hard pressed to say why public health should suffer because of other battles.
Yeah, I understand.
Other questions? Yes, Kurt.
Yeah.
Let's see, what's our basis for denial here?
Okay, so we'll have Mr. Wheeler come up and share.
Yield the podium. Thank you. Hi, Chris Wheeler with City Legal again. So our rules and regulations at Section 24 discuss the comprehensive plan and the service area as it relates to extending our sewer services. And the current policy that's in place by City of Bloomington Utilities and this Utility Service Board is that the Utility Service Board has authorized the director of the utility to make the decisions as to whether a request for extension of sanitary sewer service shall be granted in areas located outside of the city's municipal boundaries. And that's where we are in this situation. The director may grant a request for extension of sanitary sewer to a parcel or parcels located outside of the city's municipal boundaries if the owner or owners of the parcels have submitted a valid petition for voluntary annexation. And that petition would have to comply with the requirements of Indiana Code Section 36-4-3-5.1, and after considering the plans and input in this Section 24.1 and the comprehensive plan. If the owner or owners of the parcels have not submitted a valid petition for voluntary annexation that complies with the requirements of the code that I just cited, then sanitary sewer service shall not be extended. And that's the bright line rule. And we do not have a situation where a voluntary annexation can occur with regards to this property. And that's because properties that are eligible under the code for voluntary annexation have to be contiguous with the city's corporate boundaries. And this property is not. So he's not eligible to seek voluntary annexation at this time. Now, with certain annexations that might occur over time, a bridge could be built, that eventually he would have that opportunity. Now, having said all of that, in rare circumstances, the director may grant a request, even if we don't have a voluntary annexation. But currently, the only rare circumstances that have been established as the policy that the utilities is going to grant connection to sewer where there isn't a voluntary annexation of a property outside city limits is in the very rare situations where we still have a few will-serve letters that have gone out to the property owner that predate the change in this policy and predate all of the things that, as Mr. Carmen would say, are the big picture discussions. And so with those sorts of properties out there where a will-serve had gone out, substantial steps had been taken, then you might find a situation where utilities will honor that will-serve and still allow a connection to occur. And so we don't have that here. I can tell you there have been a lot of requests for connection, all that are very similar to the ones that this property owner has asked for. It's not rare, it's very common, and it is not the type of thing that legal would recommend to this board be granted. It would basically eradicate Section 24 in the policy that we set forth. Thank you.
If I may. Rule 24-2, service area. If the owners of the parcels have not submitted a valid petition for voluntary annexation that complies with the requirements of Indiana Code, then sanitary sewer service shall not be extended. That's the first part of what Chris told you, and there is not, because it's not eligible for voluntary annexation. It'd be a hollow gesture at this point. So what's the next opportunity or next best thing available? Your rule goes on. In rare circumstances, I hate to quibble, but not very rare, not unusually rare, just simple rare. And so I'm not sure what the additional adjectives add to that, but we got those. But in rare circumstances, the director may grant a request for extension of sanitary sewer service to a parcel or parcels located outside the city's municipal boundaries in exchange for a signed waiver of right of remonstrance after giving consideration to the following factors. Then it lists several factors, and I don't know if how you evaluate those in light of the lieu of director, but capacity to accept, whether the planned use of parcels is industrial, commercial, or not residential. Doesn't say which way that weighs. Does it weigh in favor of the appeal if it's commercial as opposed to residential? That's the way I interpret it, but it doesn't actually say that. It just says consider it. Whether the owner of the parcels is a governmental agency, not applicable. Whether the request will require any further extension of utility owns sanitary sewer infrastructure. It require extension of sewer infrastructure, but as we know, that's all done by the developer at the developer's expense, and with installation is approved by CBU's engineers and meets design requirements, dedication of it to the city at that point, but the extension is not a CBU's expense. Whether in case of residential uses, not applicable, any other impacts that these extension may reasonably have on the city's growth. So all I can tell you is this is an area that's not targeted for commercial growth in the county comprehensive plan. It was targeted for that by the city before the fringe area went back to the county, and it would submit that this is foreseeable. Are there going to be other requests like this? And have there been already? There may be, and there may be several of them. That doesn't detract or diminish the appropriateness of the extension of sewer service at this location at this time. I would submit that it's still appropriate. And honestly, it's hard for me to think of a way to articulate and address why it's not appropriate to do so. Honestly, folks, your council adopted an annexation plan that said there's going to be sewer extended to this area. That's the fiscal plan that the city council already adopted. Now, the fact they didn't get to do that annexation, that hasn't been implemented yet. But the city council's already spoken. They've said, we want this area, and that means we will be extending sewer in accordance with our normal rules for everybody else in the city. Now, how does annexation to take that away? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to get worked up, and I shouldn't. After 40 years of doing this kind of work, I still get agitated. I apologize. That I'll back down right now immediately. But that I would suggest the council's already spoken to you on this. That annexation plan called for fiscal plan, and that fiscal plan calls and allows for the extension of utilities. So they've spoken. We need the extension of sewer service to make this a proper and appropriate development at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Carmen or Mr. Patel? Okay. Well, I do have just one question. Is this property part of Area 1B in the annexation? It's not a part of the 2B annexed area?
1A, 1B, where that line draws, I don't know if
Okay.
I don't know.
It's not. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions for anybody? I have another question for Mr. Wheeler. So just to confirm, there would be no expense to the CBU to extend a sewer?
I don't
in
know
this
that we would
project?
know that because there would need to be extension of sewer to serve this property as I understand it. There isn't any sewer that sits in front of this property or sits adjacent to it where they could simply connect. There would have to be an extension done. So there would have to be an extension agreement put together with the developer and CBU, and in that negotiation can be potentially some cost associated with the extension that is assigned to the utilities department. So at this point, well in advance of ever having that negotiation, I can't say whether there would be any expense. Often there is no expense. The developer generally will take on that expense because they want to get connected, and we will work with them to do that. But yeah, we don't know at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Kirk?
When was this denied, Chris?
Very recently, Just,
July 9th, I believe, was the date of the letter.
it was not too long ago.
Any other questions?
Thank you. The city council's voice and will was invoked, so I'll speak to that. I actually wanted to invite staff to share the policy rationale and basis for the current policy, which I think was updated sometime in the most recently this year, but I'm not exactly sure. Over the last few years, this particular section, 24, changed.
I think it was I'm going by memory, and that's dangerous.
Yeah.
I think it was in February of 22 that change occurred.
August of 22?
Was it August? Okay. I was close.
And so, obviously, since the comprehensive plan was adopted over the last number of years, there's been changes in state law, attempts to invalidate contracts, et cetera. So I think that plays to the overall policy basis for how the director has been making decisions and what the policy is. Could you speak to that just a little bit?
Well, yes. The current use of discretion is being limited based upon the existing litigation that's occurring, the uncertainty of what it even means to receive a waiver. That litigation is continuing through appeal to identify whether the waivers that we receive have any benefit to the city. So there's that uncertainty. And then, of course, the entire annexation litigation creates a great deal of uncertainty as to where we all stand. And so with regards to those ongoing litigations is why there is a policy to to limit the discretion that the director would use in these instances of connection. The policy, having been written, was being done knowing that this litigation was ramping up back in 22, but it has had a chilling effect on the discretion that the director would otherwise have used going forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Chris?
Yes, sir.
So, if the board were to grant the sewer extension on these grounds for this parcel, wouldn't we have to then grant any request for sewer extension
Well-
on the same grounds?
If all of the facts and circumstances were similar, I would strongly urge that we be exactly consistent with anybody else who comes along making the same type of a request. Again, under the same kind of facts and circumstances, looking at those. Mr. Carmen did a very, very good job of reciting the litany of factors that are to be considered. And if those factors were the same, it would be a difficult calisthenic exercise to somehow differentiate somebody else's request and justify why we would treat it differently.
Yeah,
You'd want to treat it the same.
Yeah, that would make me uncomfortable. I think we either have to change the rules again or stick by what we have. It's just my view.
Any other comments or questions?
We can discussion phase, I guess.
Yeah.
In general terms, I'd have to fall on the side of us providing sanitary sewer service as much as we can in closely contiguous areas, and that's what this is about. It's got a little bit of rare circumstance exceptions here, and I think we found ourselves in this mess in all of the annexation litigation, which has caused uncertainty in all this. And what suffers in the meantime, while we're stumbling our way through all this litigation for annexation, is a public health problem because we add another septic system at a commercial site, which isn't a good public policy when we've got city capacity to do this. And that's where I get really confounded in all this is, my default setting is where I think most folks who follow public health is, and that is if a municipality has capacity to provide sanitary sewer, we ought to be able to do it and get people off septic systems that eventually need maintenance, especially in commercial situations, have significant failure problems, even with the regulations we have in this county for septic systems. So I realize this, if we do this, this would set a precedent for us, and that's an uncomfortable spot to be in too. And I guess the third part of this is I don't have a good feel about how the current city administration feels about this, and we're in a way need to know how the city administration feels about the priorities that I just mentioned about aside from the litigation and annexation. So this is a tough situation to be in because there's too many legal variables here with this annexation thing going on.
Any other comments from the board? I would have to agree with Kirk. I would hate to see additional septic systems going in when we have the ability to provide the service at the ratepayer's cost. And so I think that and this is why I voted against the policy in 2022, that if we are a cost of service entity and our ratepayers are paying the cost of the service and we can provide that service, then I believe we should provide that service.
So that implies that we ought to change our rules and regs.
Well, I was just one of the votes that,
No,
I was
I'm-
the vote that said, so I mean,
I'm just saying
that's
that
my
if we
thoughts on
grant
it.
this, then we're saying we don't agree with the current rules and regs.
If that's how the vote goes, then that'd be correct.
If it isn't a rare circumstance,
Yeah.
that would be correct.
Madam President?
Okay.
So I agree with Kirk. I mean, in terms of, we want to be able to provide sewer rather than have people on septic for the public health rationale for that reason. But a half-mile extension or close to it in any direction from a current node or the terminus of our sewer system is a huge precedent when we consider all of the possible requests that could be made after we were to approve this one. And the impact to, in this case, Dillman, is there's no way that I could, as a board member, estimate what that to be. We'd have to consider that in our analysis of any new rules, and certainly before making this decision, in my mind, in good conscience, we couldn't just do this and assume we're going to have capacity, opening up the precedent for a very large area. So I'm going to have to support denying the appeal for that reason. Now, I think bringing this policy issue up, as Kirk said, and looking at it in a deliberate and through a process that we can agree on is something we should do. We've been talking about it for a year, informally, but it sounds like it's time that we do that in a different way and to be able to process these types of decisions that are being brought forward apparently fairly routinely, and we're just hearing the appeal in this case.
Amanda?
If we were to approve this, would it essentially make this particular development an island in an area? It would be the one place that would have sewer connection within, say, this half-mile fringe?
Would it not be difficult to deny people who live along that path of that sewer and additional development along the path of that sewer?
So I have no idea what the sewer, what CBU's infrastructure map looks like around there and where there is service or not service. I'm sorry, I wouldn't be able to answer that question, but staff might be able to. I would like Mr. White to know that these decisions, as requests are coming in, each one of these requests gets passed up the chain to Corporation Counsel and the Mayor's office before it comes back for they get to have input on the decision before the director makes the director's choice or the director's decision on these discretionary calls. And that's where the policy has been put in place to make a limit on that rare instance as being those old cases where we do have will serve letters, and this is not one of those instances. So just so you know, that's where the administration is. If you would like, I don't know if anybody from the engineering department could help you with that question you have, Mr. Amon. Here.
Phil Peden Engineering. The closest gravity sewer is down at the fairgrounds to the west, and then up by Grandville Elementary School in that single-family residential neighborhood there. And so I think there is one property on the east side of Enright Road that's currently a church that's a customer as well, but it's quite a ways north. But they're on a force main line that couldn't be connected to, so they'd have to go to the fairgrounds or up towards Grandview Elementary School to make the connection. And it doesn't look like any of those properties along the south side of Airport Road are customers.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate this discussion. I also have concerns about kind of the systems level impacts of this decision, not just from a precedent and kind of difficulty to deny similarly situated properties in the future, but just from a city policy perspective, from a fiscal impact perspective, I don't think we can even fully remove this from non-CBU considerations. Annexation and the general considerations around that, utilities is one piece of a broader puzzle here, and the more of those pieces you give away on sort of it undermines the case for annexation, which harms the fiscal health of the city potentially over time. And so this alone, sewer service and water service alone don't necessarily do that, but if we're making similar types of decisions across multiple policy areas that collectively undermine why anyone would ever want to be, annexed voluntarily or through the existing state processes changing as they may be. I just have real concerns from a policy, legislative and fiscal perspective as a council member about the broader impacts here. And I'm mostly hearing that folks may not agree with the existing rules and regs, and I think it was mentioned the path would be to change those or reconsider them, as opposed to granting a waiver or I forget the actual mechanism we're considering here. Granting the appeal rather. So that's just my view, and hope that we could dig into this in a more comprehensive manner if that's the will of the board. Thanks.
Thank you.
Would you take one more comment?
Sure.
I don't want to keep belaboring this. The issue of overloading Dillman, I would have thought would have been a factor before there is annexation ordinance proposed, because they've already said we can do this, the council. But more to Matt's point, the law allows a concept called a commitment concerning the use and development of real estate. It would be, this document makes a commitment that something's going to be done with the land or not done with the land, gets recorded, so it shows up in chain of title, deeds, future owners, whatever. You could make a condition of this appeal, should you approve it, that we record a commitment that when the property becomes eligible for voluntary annexation, which is a contiguity problem right now, but when it becomes eligible, that the then property owner must file a petition for voluntary annexation. Doing so today is a hollow gesture because it's not eligible, but it someday will be. And to deal with the cutting away and the incrementally of the why annexation should happen, we solve that with a voluntary petition for annexation, but it would be a commitment to do it when it is no longer a hollow gesture, but an actual possibility, and would make that a commitment that could be recorded and shows up in the chain of title.
Other comments? Okay, thank you. Hearing no further comments, discussions, questions, then I guess at this time we would need a motion to either approve or deny the sewer extension. Or Mr., okay, no. Okay.
I'll move that we deny the request.
Is there a second to deny the request? All in favor of denying the request for sewer extension, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion passes, and the sewer extension has been denied. So thank you for coming today and sharing your request, and good luck with your project. Okay. All right, moving on. We have approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on July 15th. Are there any questions or corrections? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have approval of the claims. First, our standard invoices in the amount of $1,632,235.26. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have utility bills in the amount of $54,268.36. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have wire transfers in the amount of $461,067.44. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Finally, we have customer refunds in the amount of $5,197.25. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have our approval of the consent agenda in the amount of $11,481. Catherine Zager.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Zager, Assistant Director of Environmental and Interim Director. I'm presenting tonight's consent agenda totaling $11,481. Our first contract is with Affordable Fence, Inc. for $1,380 to replace a sensor on a fence to open the gate once the vehicle approaches. I believe this is at Dillman. At Dillman. Our second is with Veolia WTS Analytical Instruments, Inc. for $6,911 for the calibration and maintenance of equipment at Monroe, Dillman, and Blucher. The third is for Stites Scale Company, Inc., $3,190 for service and calibration of balances at Blucher, Dillman, and Monroe. Sorry, B was for just Monroe. Is there any member who wishes to consider one or more of these items individually? Hearing none, if there is no opposition, these items will be approved as recommended by staff. Hearing no opposition, the consent agenda is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have requests for approval of agreement for services with the McAllister Machinery Company, Inc. Isabel Quiros. Come on down.
Hello. I'm Isabel Quiros, Hazardous Materials Coordinator, Environmental Division. I would like to request approval for contract with McAllister for regular inspections for all CBU's emergency generators for the amount of $34,813. Any questions?
Yes, Kirk.
How does this differ from the service contract we did a couple of weeks ago?
This is regular maintenance as opposed to an on-call contract for repair. So these type of inspections are a requirement from a compliance perspective with item.
So does this cover all of our generators?
Yes, all the generators, the booster station, lift stations, and the water treatment plants.
Okay. And they do,
They are biannual inspections, and we keep record of them for, that can be used as audit material from item in the future.
how many generators do we have?
How many we have 15,
That includes the lift stations.
correct.
Okay. Good, thanks.
Thank you.
So this is likely an agreed upon amount, not to exceed that will be used up, but rather this is how much it's going to cost to get out there twice a year and do
Yes.
the O&M, yeah, or the M.
Yes, it's a set amount for the year for all the generators.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have request for approval of agreement for services with Milestone Contracting LP, James Hall. James Hall. I didn't see him. Yeah,
Hi, I'm
okay.
presenting the request for approval with agreement with Milestone Contracting. This is for a paving job after we replaced a water main on Smith and 3rd. We are asking Milestone to do the paving because they are already paving the southern half of the project as part of their own intersection work. I can
Oh,
take questions.
sorry, yeah. I
Yeah,
forgot.
sorry.
I'm looking around, but I didn't say anything. Questions for Kat? Can you just please refresh my memory? I know this project has had a pause because of the work that I think additional work that needed to be done. Not on our end, but I'm just, in general, this 3rd and Smith project on that south end is taking longer. So we've been able to, this was unexpected on our end to have to do this work, I guess.
I'm not sure how unexpected to do the actual relocation was. I know that we had finished the relocation, and I don't know of any considerable delays on our end.
Okay.
But the paving work, it just made sense and was, from a financial standpoint, to have them pave it
Yeah. Okay.
while they're there.
I guess that's my misunderstanding of this project, but, oh, yes. Thanks, Phil. Maybe that's the north end.
Phil Peden Engineering, yes, there was some storm structures as part of that project that, based on where the locates were shown or the engineers showed at the water main, that once they got out there and started to place the storm elements, they recognized that the water main was going to be in conflict.
Okay.
So I think it was more of a field adjustment.
Okay, so just on our part, we're doing our part, but it took longer on the other people's to get it done. So, okay, great. Well, we definitely want to get that paved. So, are there any other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, old business. We have an update on the 2025 budget. Matt Havey and Katrin Zager.
Sure, yeah. This will be a really short budget. I just wanted to let the USB know that it should be on your computers in your packet, the newest draft of the memo. We will also be sending it out to you via email. We've updated it to address some of the comments that were made at the last finance subcommittee meeting and at the board meeting. We are not currently asking for a recommendation to council today, just because we're still waiting to have the final template for the memo. So we'll bring that once we have the final template. But we did want to let you know that we had updated a lot of the projects with numbers as requested, some points of clarity that had also been requested, and we had added a section towards the end where we had addressed projects that were not completed that were in the 2024 budget memo.
Thank you.
Happy to take any questions on it now, but we will be bringing it back to the next board meeting.
Questions? Jeff?
I just have one, and it's for the, I was looking at the presentation before, it's at top of page 7, the revenue projections. I don't understand how our revenue projections would go down for sewer and stormwater for 2024 and 2025 from the 2023 actual? Is this an accounting thing that needs to be explained to me, or is there some other reason why we would expect them to go down so much?
Kind of took a multi-year average for the budget this year, and so we don't know how much water people are going to use, right? And so we just kind of looked over the past few years and made an estimate based on that. You're trying to be conservative as well.
There's an upward trend that's in the 3 years of actual data that we have. Why would we expect it to be an average, or at least not equal the last year?
We're just trying to be conservative, so we don't commit more money than we're going to bring in.
Okay, but that's also not being realistic in what we'd expect. So you're saying that we should plan to have less revenue than what we actually are going to get, and that's a practice that we should that's an approach that we should take to.
I don't want to overcommit the budget, and then people think they have more money than they really do to spend. I would rather end the year with an extra $1 million in our pocket than be out of money.
I understand the approach, and is that a normal practice that we followed the last few years, and I just didn't really notice?
I've only done it the past couple of years personally,
okay.
So I don't know how it was done in the past.
Okay.
But it's been my professional training that when you don't have a lot of data to back it up, to be conservative.
Okay. As long as we understand the way we're doing it. Okay, thanks for explaining that to me.
Other questions? Yes, Jim.
Yeah, at the last meeting, Megan brought up what I thought was a really interesting point about the visa charges, both that we're paying and that we're covering the trash use of Visa for that. And is that going to be part of the new budget, or are we moving ahead with that?
Right now, it would be included in us covering it is currently in the budget for next year.
But our covering is in the budget.
Correct. But we didn't. I found out that City Hall also absorbs the credit card fees, so this is a broader issue than just CBU right now. We need to figure out how we want to approach this as a city, really, too. So.
But we will be moving forward with the discussion.
We already have, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So this could be something that's taken care of in the interdepartmental agreement, right? If there's some portion of the fee that applies to trash, that's what you're asking, right?
Yes, that plus there was discussion of perhaps adding a 3% fee.
Oh, when people use a card.
Using Visa, so that we aren't covering the $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
The conversation's been started, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I just have a general question about the budget process. When we do our budget here, how are the department heads involved in that process, or are they not involved in that process? Is it something that is more top-down versus bottom-up? It's just really a question. I mean,
I would say this year we got to a point where we're more of a hybrid on that one. In the past, it's been more of a top-down approach, but this year, going through the process, I made sure to talk to all the other ADs and get their input on what they wanted to spend some money on.
so you're
So
saying
the bottom-up approach to me is going to all the ADs and all the department heads and saying, what do you want? And then roll that up. In the past, it's been more of a top-down, but now this year is more of a hybrid, where there was some top-down guidance, but there was input from all the other department heads.
Well, I encourage you to continue to go that route because I think that I know in my past experience when I would head a department, I had to work on my budget and give it to the dean or give it to the director, who then collectively would look at everything, to see how it would go. And I encourage you to do that because I think that would be a fantastic way, number one, to involve your team, but to have them have true ownership in the budget.
Exactly. So that's been my approach, is that this isn't Matt's budget. All the ADs have their own little chunk that they're responsible for, and they're gonna get measured against that.
Yeah. Well, I think that, like I said, I know what we do has to get, whatever we come up with has to get approved by, by the city council, so I was really just curious how much of a team effort it is in building the budget here, and if it isn't, I would encourage it, because I think
it's a significant team effort.
it's beneficial, I think, for everyone, so, anyway, that was just a question.
Thank you. Other questions? So we can anticipate at our next meeting in 2 weeks, we'll look at like the final
Yes.
draft.
Yes, we'll have a full presentation at the next meeting with essentially a final draft. We encourage all the board members and then following weeks to make any additional comments you may have, any thoughts you have on this latest draft. Please, go ahead and send those to Frank.
Thank you. And just since Jim brought it up, about the credit card fees and you're looking into it with downtown, do you have like a timeline of figuring out, like, I guess, or like a report back to us, okay, this is, they've said we've got to keep them or whatever, or do what you want, or I guess, our intent was like at January 1, it's on the customer, so I don't feel like that they're necessary, just in my opinion, like if that's what we think is best for our utilities budget, then we should be able to decide that and get that enacted.
I can
Okay.
try to present it that way.
Okay. I
But it would-
understand, like,
but-
we're our own entity here, but we are under the city, I understand that, so, it's important to be consistent, but I think ours, when people are paying a monthly bill here, $360,000 really adds up to a significant amount, where, a little bit here, ours is just more significant impact, I think. Yes.
So does the city, when a person pays their bill with a credit card, it's not something that's being, I'm gonna say, like, swiped here, it's being done at the city because that's where the bills get paid?
They call into our phone to pay with
Yeah.
credit card, and currently we pay a 2.5% surcharge on that we are currently absorbing,
Okay.
right? In the cities, the civil city is doing the same thing.
And so, but what if one pays it online? And like, don't we also have that option that you can pay it online and then use the credit card?
You can pay it online, and if you're using a credit card, no matter where you use it, whether you call in or online, we get charged the fee.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
You get charged a fee even if you come in and use the front desk.
gotcha.
Yeah.
But it's something that we manage, it's not something that the city, okay.
But what I'm saying though is that the city is also absorbing them, and so if we're going to change, we need to take that into consideration. That if they pay us, they're going to eat the fee. If they pay downtown, then they don't have to, right? So
With the $300-something thousand charge, what does that if we were to say we're not taking credit cards anymore, would that hurt would that hurt us more so by not getting payments?
we could take a lot of credit card payments. There would be some backlash on that one.
Okay.
That would hurt ratepayers
Yeah.
to not be able to use credit cards. I'm not necessarily in favor of racking up credit card bills,
Right.
but
Right, and that's what I'm saying, is that if we, if that option were on the table to just say, well, we're just not gonna take credit cards at all, I don't think that's a solid.
No.
Yeah, okay.
No, that would be
That's-
tough to do.
That would be terrible, yeah.
Just to be clear, can we ask in the interdepartmental agreement that the city pay for their share of that cost to us for the increment that's due to trash?
We can ask for whatever we want to ask for.
Can we, well, I'm asking,
Yeah,
if the board's in agreement
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
when the city wanted to add trash to the CBU bills, we would have been smart enough to bring that point up, but Megan wasn't a member of the board
Thank you.
at that point.
Okay.
So, I mean, one of the options that we're currently exploring is that the fees would get taken away before we see the money, and so that would be the overall fee.
But that still go to the customer, though.
Huh?
That still go to the customer, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're exploring an option where when the customer pays, that fee is taken out before we see the money, which would be easier for us and for, so we wouldn't have to have another fee with the IURC. On our end, that would make it easier. And that would also make it easier from an interdepartmental accounting standpoint because it wouldn't matter because we're not taking on that fee and neither is DPW. And so that's the option that we're currently exploring, which I think would be better for everyone. So we wouldn't even have to deal with like an interdepartmental agreement because nobody would be taking it on.
That's fine, but
Okay.
for what's happened already, I'm just asking that we please make the request that we're reimbursed for that portion that's allocated to trash, whatever that is, maybe 15% or 20, whatever that is.
I don't know what it was either, so. No, that's fine.
Yeah, I like to keep the books clean with the city. It's very important because we get piecemealed by them over my history on this council, on this board. We get piecemealed, and we always have to ask for what we've always had to ask, and we need to continue to ask when the times come. So this is one instance of that. Otherwise, the city gets off scot-free. It happens time and time again.
Yeah, we can ask.
Any other comments? I think that sounds like a great solution, to have the ratepayer pay it, and it's just a fee for using that site, and it's separate from our budget. I know that's how the Duke Energy is, because, well, that's how I pay my Duke, and it says, you want to be charged like $1.25 or something. I'm like, yep, I checked the box, and so I think that sounds like a clean way to do it. Thank you for investigating that, and we'll look forward to hearing, more in the coming weeks to see that get solidified, hopefully, so we can get that, notify our customers to know that change will be coming. So, thank you. Okay. Any other old business? Should have started with old business from the board, so sorry about that. Old business from staff. Okay, new business from the board. Yes, Kirk.
Yeah, just for everybody's information, I checked the wastewater scan on for SARS-CoV-2, and the Dillman plant has seen quite a significant increase over the last few weeks. We're at 1,238 parts per million. The last time we were that high for COVID was Thanksgiving week, the week after Thanksgiving. So there's a significant COVID infection going on, it looks like, in our community, just so we track it, so we might as well report it. To give you some comparison, nationally, the national numbers for all the wastewater across the country is only at 600 parts per million, and we're at 1238. So we're about twice what the national average is right now. So it's a good idea to be practicing good public health standards these days because there's a lot of COVID in Monroe County, at least that's coming through the Dillman plant.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments about that? Any other new business from the board? New business from staff? Okay. Subcommittee reports. We did not have any subcommittees this week. We have requested a property and planning subcommittee meeting. Thank you, Kirk, for sharing that idea. So we'll be getting that on the books. And then finance will be a report at the regular meeting, correct? Okay. So no need for a subcommittee meeting there. Okay. All right. Staff reports.
We would like to welcome 2 new members of our staff. First, we have Casey Chappell, who is our new water conservation outreach intern. We'll be working with Nolan to improve our outreach. And then I would like to put on both my interim director and my assistant director of environmental programs hat to welcome Stephen Stanford, our new pre-treatment coordinator. Stephen.
Welcome.
Pleased to meet you.
Thank you for coming tonight. We've got a big meeting to wait through. Thank you.
That's all I've got for today.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, welcome. We're so glad to have you. Any additional petitions and communications? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? All right, thank you. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.